my name is Sandy. I'm going to show you today how to build a grant. First, you're going to see that in the box you open, you have two smaller boxes and then a tank. Please, when you move the tank, make sure you are two people because it's extremely heavy. The grant is composed of two units, the main unit and then secondary unit. In the two boxes, you will find the base. Each unit has a different base that you need to identify. This is the main base. You have different cables and you have the drawer here with pump outputs here. The second base has far less things and is here. You can see that you don't have any pump outputs and you don't have any drawer handle. So this is how you can identify which one is the secondary base and which one is the main base. Now what we will do is get those bases ready. This is important because this will be under the tank and once it's done you cannot access it at all. The main step will be to wire all those cables and then make sure they're fixed and stable. So before we go into the setup, why don't I show you the different tools I'm using to build a grant. This is the lubricant you will use to push the stoppers in case you have any issue and it is too difficult to do. This is a lighter. You might need it for some tubing when they're a little bit too tight in order to make them fit properly. A simple piece of wood, as you can see, and this can be used, this is one option anyways, to push some tabs. I will show you how to use it. The ruler, you just need to identify some tubing to make sure you are selecting the right one. Tape and scissors are for the base. I will show you in a minute. Pliers are to break some plastic parts for the false bottom. Pen, this is a technique that we found to help pushing the stoppers in the glass tank without scrapping the glass. The sponge is to help when you push on tubing, not to hurt your little fingers. Those are the tools you will need to build the grant. So now let's move on to the base assembly. I will work right now with the main base. You can see that there are different cables. Here you have two main cables that are heating cables. The black one is the ventilation heating cable and the blue one is the substrate heating cable. Those ones are not going to be wired through the base, so you can set them aside for now. Same for the NTC sensor, which is the sensor that you will have in your substrate. Now what we have left are a couple of cables here. Here you have the LED cable that will be plugged to your light. Here you have small, thin black wire is the wire that goes to the camera. Then you have the humidistat, which is measuring the air temperature and humidity inside your Biopod with the gray cable. And then finally you have the two misting tubes, those transparent tubing that will help with your rain. Now that we have discussed what the different parts are, we're gonna route the cables. There's not really an order to route them, it's just how I do it. Here you can see that you have some notches where you're gonna be able to fix the cable. It will help to hold it still. I will do this for the camera cable here and then route it through this hole here. There you go. Same on this side, you have the misting cable that you will route through the exterior hole and put it through this groove here to hold it in place. When you are placing the misting cable, make sure that this here creates a little loop so that it doesn't kink at the output of the metal box here. On the other side, you can start with the LED cable and route it through this hole here. There. Same with the humidistat cable. Route it through the same hole as the LED cable. And then finally, the misting cable on this side through the exterior hole. Same as the other one, make sure there is a little bit of loop here and then fix it here on the groove. The final step is to tape the cables to make sure they don't come out of the box. So what you need is the tape and the scissors. Here you can individually tape this cable and the other one. For today we're using electrical tape, but there are different ways to do it. Here you can put one here just before the hole And then maybe you can add one here for the camera cable. On the other side, you can tape both LED cable and humidistat cable here at the base. Tape the misting cable here. And then a final piece of tape here, LED cable and humidistat. This is it for the main base. Now we have to do the secondary base the same way. You can see that the secondary base has less components. You have the substrate heating cable here that we won't route through the base, NTC sensor, substrate sensor as well. And then what is remaining here are the missing cables and the LED cable. We will route the LED cable, the misting cable in the second hole. And then on the other side, just make sure you push hard enough so that it actually fits in there. Tape here, and then a little bit of tape here because it seems like this groove is not working as well. Taping both misting cable and LED cable. Loop here to avoid kinking. Tape here for the LED. This is in case this groove is not tight enough. Now that we have both bases ready, you just have to turn them upside down and put them on a table. You can see here that we have the secondary base and then the main base. You can see here the pump outputs. Before putting the tank on it, you have to do two things. First, putting the two bases together so that they touch each other in the middle, and then pull the drawer on the main base. You can hold it with your finger and then use your thumb to pull it out of the base here. So now we're ready, and you have to definitely move the tank with someone else. You can see that the two bases are aligning properly with the holes that you have on the tanks. Now I will show you the different components that you need to have all the cables at the back of the tank set up. Those are the different stoppers you're gonna need for the cable routing at the back of the tank. I have lined them up as they should be on the tank. So we have three types of stoppers with holes. You have the one with the bigger hole, you have one with a smaller hole, and then you have one type that is a medium-sized hole. So just make sure you don't mix the bigger and medium hole. You can check out the instruction guide to make sure you have the right amount. What you will need to put the stoppers in the holes is the pen and maybe some lubricant. I will show you the technique I have to put those stoppers in. There are two ways to put the stoppers. Either you have someone on the other side holding the tank for you because you're gonna push always on the glass, or you use your arm, slide it under the tank, and then hold it for yourself. First one I will insert are the one with the big hole. Those ones are really easy to put. You just have to push with your finger and make sure the lip on the other side is properly put. Then you have the medium size stopper that will go here for the irrigation pump. I will put this one too with the big hole, which is easy to put here. Then the very small hole stopper. So this one is a little bit harder to put. So what you do is you have to always maintain the pressure on the stopper, and then with your other finger here, try to put this lip here inside the tank through the hole. Don't be afraid to push on it. Then what I have left are the stoppers without any holes. You can do it the same way with one hand and one finger. Sometimes it works. Sometimes if it doesn't work, then you're gonna need to use the pen, and then you will need someone to push on the tank on the other side to make sure you don't move the tank away from the base. The tip of the pen needs to be out so that it's pointy enough to help push the stopper inside the hole. What you will do is insert the stopper from the bottom. Use the tip of the pen to push the lip inside the hole while pushing on the stopper with your thumb. If you use a screwdriver, this might damage the hole here, so that's why we're using a pen. You can also use the tip of the pen to push on the stopper to insert it. Also, if you have any issue with those stoppers, don't forget the lubricant can help a lot. All you have to do is open it and take a tiny bit of it. You really don't need a lot to help it. And put it around the stopper like that. This will help to push it in there much easier. Now that we inserted the stoppers here, we will insert the ones that are on the cable already. The first one to go is the substrate cable. Take the substrate cable tip and then slide it in the bottom hole. So you will definitely need the pen, someone to be on the other side, and maybe some oil. This one is really the hardest one. So you probably will have to try a couple of times. And definitely you really have to push hard. You can also turn it a little bit to help. Next step, the ventilation heating cable, the black one. Put it through the hole that is just on top of the blue cable. You can pull the stopper a little bit to get this type of slack. I always try to be symmetrical, push a little bit on one side, then the other side, until there is just the very top of the rubber that stays there. And then here, push. You just have one hole remaining. This is where you will put it. Here, this one might be or might not be hard to put. Here it was easy, sometimes it's not. There you go, all the stoppers are put in. As you can see here, I installed the different stoppers. It is the same technique as the other one. You have 4 plain stoppers here that I installed, and then the 2 stoppers here that were with the cables. So now that we are done with the stoppers, what you will have to do at the back of the Biopod is to insert this elbow here and then the tubing for the sponge and the ventilation tube. I will show you how to insert them. You will need probably a sponge or something a little bit hard to help you push on those tubes. So first, insert this elbow here in the 3rd hole at the back. Here. And then you have those 2 ventilation tubes. You can insert it first simply by moving it inside the stopper like that, and then help with the sponge to push on it and insert it. Don't insert it too deep. It should stick out by about this distance. And then finally, you will insert the sponge tube into this stopper here. So now I'm gonna take this piece of back wall here. You can see that the one that will go at the bottom first will be the one that needs to hold the reservoir. What you need to do is just route all the cables you have through the holes of the piece. Same hole must be used for the piece if you compare it to the base. Here I'm inserting on the outer hole the misting tube, and then I will insert the camera cable and the LED cable through the other tube. Once I have everything inserted, put the piece up while holding the cables so that they don't slide back inside the piece. This is what the remaining piece looks like. You will have 3 of them and you need to insert them here for the back wall. Same method, you just have to insert all those cables through the component. Always push on the pieces on both sides at the same time so that it really clicks into place and it's not crooked. So you can see here the completed back wall. Now that we are inside the tank, we will work on all the tubing, elbow, and different components here. The first thing you can do is add the air stone to the air pump output, which is here. simply push the air stone inside the tube. You don't have to go all the way. Then you will add an elbow, so it's a 90-degree elbow with number 8 to this piece here. This will go to the vertical wall. The 2 clicks and then pull on it to make sure it is tight. The last thing you will do here is adding those 90 degrees elbow. This is a 10 and you have 2 of them to the ventilation tubes here. This is your connection to the fan. Give it a good push to insert the elbow properly. And then you can insert the second one. Also push and pull on it just to make sure it's properly sealed. And then you can turn both of those ones parallel to the glass. Just make sure this goes around here. You can add the sponge here to this tube. In this setup here, the sponge needs to be parallel to the glass. Now we're gonna insert the ventilation tube. You have 2 ventilation tubes, a long one and a short one. The short one will go on the right and the long one will go on the left. It is to insert your tube, just feel 2 click inside the elbow once again, 1, 2, and pull on it to make sure it is really fixed. Now you can install the ventilation tube properly. Those 2 black cables should go on top of it. The blue cable should go under it. The ventilation tube will go under both sponge tube and aeration tube. Now you will insert the ventilation tube output inside this piece here. Just push vertically and wiggle it so that it goes in there. You don't have to push it all the way through. More than half through is important though. As the ventilation tube is sticking out, you can use the suction cups to attach it to the glass. You have 2 types of suction cups with a small head and a big head. Use the big head for the ventilation tube and the small head will be used for any heating cable. Here. You can attach now the ventilation cable to the frame. The aluminum frame here has a groove under it. You can feel it with your finger and just press the ventilation tube inside, all along the frame up to the end. Start with the left side and finish at the right side. You can use both hands or a wooden tool to push on it. Once you're at the end here, you can route the ventilation cable along the wall with the ventilation tube. Okay, so you can see now that I attached the substrate heating cables to the glass using the suction cups with the small heads. What is important when you do that is that the cable is not touching itself because it will go very warm. The best way to do it is to have this type of winding shape here. Also, it is good because it covers all the tank. You don't have a spot where it's going to be colder. So now we are going to place the vertical wall inside the tank. You will need to glue it to the glass with a silicone. So you have 2 types of silicones that you can use, either aquarium silicone that you can find in specialized stores, or silicone one, which is a clear silicone that will be also pet friendly. One way to know that it's safe is to smell the silicone. It will smell like vinegar. Come here and I will show you how to place it. You will have to place drops of silicone and you can help yourself with those different points. So we will place about 6 drops of silicone. You can put 7 or 5. You need to have them near the center so that it doesn't spread out. Here I will show you this amount of silicone here on the glass. Assemble all the vertical units of the wall to have just one big part that you will put inside the tank. What you will have to do is align the 2 tabs that we put before with those holes here. This one, the round one, and push it so that it goes inside it. So you have to do it both at the same time. So first, place your vertical wall like here, not touching the glass, and align those 2 tabs with the holes on both sides. Now the wall is placed. All you have to do is push it against the wall. You can press on it, maintain the wall like that in this position for about 2 minutes. You need to align the edge of this vertical wall with the end of the unit here. One good way to see if you're properly aligned is to look at this T connector here and see that it is aligned with this elbow here. Here you can see I did the same on this side. There should be no gap between the two vertical walls here. From now on, you have two options. Either you wait for 24 hours so that the silicone dries properly. I used one of the remaining vertical wall units to hold it in place. You can do it on both sides. If you don't want to wait 24 hours, you can finish the setup now and then place this after. In any case, you will have to wait 24 hours before escaping the Biopod itself. In order to connect the two vertical wall at the bottom, you will use this black tube. I will connect this black tube to this part of the vertical wall. I need to hold the elbow so that I'm not moving the vertical wall while connecting the tube. Same stuff as usual. First click, second click. Okay, and then I will connect it on the other side. Last thing to do is to connect the T connector with the elbow here. We have a black tube that is used for different setup, but in the case of this setup, you will need to cut it. The length of the tube that you need goes from this part here to this part here. This is about the length that you need. So this is the tube that you're looking at. You can use a pair of scissors, X-Acto knife, or pipe cutter to cut this properly. Okay, so for now I will cut it up to here. This might be a little bit too long, but I prefer to do it in different steps. Now that this pipe is cut, we will install it here, but first we will set it aside and install the false bottom. Here we have a piece of false bottom and also the false bottom connectors that you will use to connect all the pieces together. I will show you how to install those false bottom and how to break them, because you will have to adapt it to the cable. You might have to break those holes here. The best way to break it is either to use a screwdriver or a pair of pliers, something heavy, to bang on the piece of plastic to break it. You will have to break those little pieces of plastic here because the cables are rooting under the false bottom. You can use your fingers or a pair of pliers. All you have to do is bend them until they break here. So either it comes really easily or not. I will show you how to place the first two pieces of false bottom on the main unit side. I punched first one of those holes here so that the pipe for the vertical wall fits. Then what I do is I place it and then look at what pins on the side I need to break to have all the cables going through the false bottom. So here I can see that lots of those pins need to go away on this side, and then small pins here, a small amount, will have to go because of this cable here. Here I place it, and you can see that those two pipes are going through the false bottom. I need to do the same on the other side. For this piece specifically that goes in there, you also need to break this part at the bottom of the false bottom. This is only for this piece. Most of them you don't have to do that. So same technique with the pair of pliers. You just bend the plastic and it will end up breaking. In order to install properly this part of the false bottom, because a pipe is going through it and the elbow head should go through this hole, you need to smooth the edges. The best solution is to use the lighter, have the flame go under it a little bit to warm it up, and then with the scissors or any other thing, you just go on the sides to smooth the surface here. Insert it, you can see that there is one here missing, so I can feel that the false bottom is not right on the glass. So here I installed this piece. You can see that the air stone, I put a hole here so that the air stone would go straight and then through this one. The ventilation cable and the NTC sensor cable will go on top of the false bottom, so you don't need to root it underneath. Here I placed the second one. You can see that under it there is the sponge, and then I had some holes for the ventilation tube and the substrate cable. Now I will take one of those pins and then insert it in between the two false bottoms so that they are connected. The next step will be to insert the tube in between the elbow and the T-connector. The best way to do it is to detach the T-connector from the vertical wall to have a little bit of space. Push the tube inside the elbow, 2 clicks, and then replace the T-connector here and then through the vertical wall. You can bend the tubes. That's better than bending the vertical wall. You don't want that. The false bottom, you can see that it's not perfect. It's not completely against the glass. Don't worry, you will have lots of weight on top of it once you scape it. When working with the false bottom, try to limit the breaking of all those plastic pins, but don't worry about it too much. This is here mainly to hold the dust and the rocks from the scaping to go under the false bottom. Okay, so I've finished the false bottom now. You can see that you have 16 pieces all along the tank. One thing that you need to note is on the secondary base side, I punched a hole here to let the NTC sensor out on top of the false bottom. This is the top of the canopy here. What I will do is install those nozzles for the rain. So you have a nut that you need to take out, put the nozzle at the bottom, and then screw the nut here to fix the nozzle. You can orient your nozzles like that. To insert the top of the Biopod, what you need to look at is this part here. On the right side, this should face the middle of the tank. And when you insert the top, you need to first angle it like that so that this part goes inside the metal structure properly, and then lay it down here. You also need to insert those 2 pieces of clear plastic to cover the holes here. Those holes are for future feed systems here. So all you have to do is that on both sides. There. I will route the cable now through the light canopy at the back of the Biopod. Here is the misting tube. This one you can put at the far side of the light canopy. The camera cable needs to be routed here. Just play around with it, yeah. And then misting cable also goes on the far side here. Humidistat will go beside it here. And then the LED cable also through the same hole here. I just hooked the LED cable. Now that it is in this position, you can see it out there. The next step will be to close all the tabs that are on top of the Biopod unit here. So what you need to do is use a tool like this, which is simply a piece of wood, to help push on the tab. You will push on the tab here while holding it here with your finger so that it doesn't come out. While holding it here, you push on it to lock it. It will just have a little piece of plastic going under the metal frame so that it locks this top here. Don't do this one, which will lock the door. We will do all the tabs that are on the top of this unit except this one. It doesn't go very far. All it does is maybe like 1 millimeter or something, but it's enough to lock it in place. The last one you cannot forget is under the canopy. It is easier to push the tabs before you install the top of the light. What we will do now is place the humidistat sensor. Here is the head of the sensor. This cable is going through the main unit and routes the cable here in the middle of the tank. What you need to put the sensor together are those two pieces that you have in one of your bags. What you need to do is turn it upside down and then put it this way inside the first part of the packaging plastic. Then you have this little piece here where you can see this part here that will go inside, slide here inside the second plastic part. Once you've slid it here, all you have to do is snap it, push it, that's what you have at the end. This head will go inside one of the grooves. You have two grooves here. You will take the one that is the closest to the secondary unit. You just have to slide it like you did for the camera. The position of the sensor should be in the middle. I have taken the second top part for the secondary unit. I've placed the nozzles like the other one and the plastic tabs on both sides to cover the feed hole. Now I will slide the top inside the secondary unit. Make sure the misting tubes are sticking out. They need to stay out of the tank. And just make sure you have the nozzles that go inside too. And what you have to do is put the humidistat cable through the little hole here that is at the back of the top. You did the same with the camera on the other side. For now, you can give it slack, so it depends on what you want it to look like. Either you kind of make it follow the frame of the Biopod or you have a straight line. This is up to you. And then remember to insert the roof is properly inserted like the other one. Take your time and just make sure it falls in place. The last thing to do here is to insert the misting tubes into the nozzles. Just remember to put those heads to here. If the cable is too long, you can end up cutting it with a knife, with a scissor. Just make sure, as usual, that the tip is not on an angle because you're not going to be able to insert it into the nozzle. Here. Here. And then the second one. Like that. So here we are at the back of the Biopod now, the main unit. What we have remaining here is to connect everything. So it's pretty straightforward. What you need to do is push on the metal box to have it not stick out that much in order to be able to make the connections. So the first connection that you need to do is this connector here to this tube, which is the sponge. So in order to connect it properly, you just give it a good push here, and then you pull on it to see if it actually is tight. So this one is good, and then the second one you have to do is this one and this one. So you need to push this a little bit further so that you are able to connect them. Same, really check that it's really tight, because this one has the irrigation, so lots of water will go through that. If you have any leaks, that might come from the fact that you didn't push it enough. And then last step is to connect the fan exhaust to those two tubes. What you have to do is push this part all the way through while aligning it with the heads of the two tubes. You need to have tubes that stick out enough so that you can actually connect it. You probably will need someone to hold a tank. You can add now the reservoir. So what you have here is the stopper that you're going to insert inside this hole here by pushing vertically on it. You have 2 reservoirs, so just make sure you put both in place. The final step is now to push the light unit all the way through. You need to do it in a symmetrical way so that it actually works. Push it on it, and then you can either use a tool or your fist to put it inside. Thank you for watching our video about setting up the Grand. You can check us out on our website, on Facebook, YouTube, and you can email us at hey@biopod.com if you have any questions.